Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Leader in You podcast brought to you by EMC Leaders. I'm so excited to be here. I co host this amazing podcast with the wonderful Dr. Lola Gershfeld. Welcome, Dr. Lola.
Hello, Polina. It's so nice to be here with you. Hello, everyone. We love doing these podcasts, and today we have an exciting topic.
Yes, we're so excited. We're in the middle of summer, and I know sometimes the summer heat gets into conflicts and into situations at work, right? It starts getting hot, the weather changes, and people's mood changes as well. And when you don't have the right tools to self regulate your mood and your emotions, and definitely amidst conflict, you're in the right place, because this is where we teach you how to use effective tools to regulate yourself and de-escalate conflicts, and to be able to resolve conflicts and repair conflicts in the most effective way possible, to, of course, to create this thriving environment that we all dream of at work. So we have a very interesting topic for you today, and Dr. Lola is going to give us a bit of a backstory of what happened, and then we're going to dive in to how this correlates at your work, and maybe something that you're experiencing that you could possibly need some support with. Take it away.
All right. Well, on the news, there was a lot of talk about Caitlin Clark, and she's a star player at the women's national basketball team. And she's
Yes,
a great
WNBA.
player. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
WNBA. And she's a great player. And what was interesting is she basically got pushed by another player, and the opponent player had her arm into her neck. And so they called it a foul. And it was very interesting what happened after. Caitlin Clark got upset at this opponent. I don't remember her name, but she got upset. And what she was doing is she was engaging the audience. And then afterwards, Stephanie White, who is her coach, told Caitlin Clark to leave the game. Yes.
So Caitlin Clark was playing in a basketball game. The opponent pushed her,
She
and
kind of like
she
fouled,
fell.
yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then she attacked her physically, which is what it seemed like, the
Yeah,
opponent.
it seemed
Okay.
like, yeah,
And
exactly.
because of that, Caitlin Clark turned to the crowd because she didn't feel that there was a fair foul, or fair call on that play.
Yes, exactly.
So she turned to the crowd and tried to get them to kind of respond
Yes.
audibly,
Yes.
to this incorrect foul call.
Yes, exactly. And in that moment, I guess Stephanie White, her coach, jumped up and was looking, and um, Caitlin Clark was being very upset at the referee that didn't want to give them a full foul. I'm not exactly 100% sure how the game plays.
Mm-hmm.
The dynamics that is happening between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White has been becoming more and more tense in the last 2 years. And
Okay.
people sometimes view Caitlin Clark as a brat, because she just gets her way and she starts to engage the audience, and the audience responds to her. And she has done that in the past when she was playing in the high school, and her dad would get really, really mad about this, because she would get referees mad, she would get all the other people mad, and he would tell her, stop doing it, just mind your own business, because she would get into the fights with referee.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has this bad rap as if she's the troublemaker, but she's also a star player. And
Mm-hmm.
the coach is trying to coach her, I guess, brat behavior out of her. But the
Like the
problem is,
brattiness.
yeah, but the problem is she's doing it the coach is ineffective, because Caitlin Clark is not even listening to her. And so
Mm-hmm.
also you see the video where Stephanie White makes a decision for Caitlin to leave the game, and she's not even looking at her when she makes that
Mm,
decision. And so
mhm.
Caitlin leaves the game. You see two trainers following her, and then she just walks by herself. And then 12 minutes later, they announce that Caitlin Clark hurt her back, and that's why she's
Oh.
not returning to the game. So
Mm,
that is the whole premise of our talk today, because this is exactly what happens in the workplace. You have people who are maybe a star performers, and they are not listening to the boss or to the manager, and then they get into these dynamics that are happening. Is like the company doesn't really want to fire them
mhm,
because they are performing really well, but also the manager is not really connecting to the and getting really more and more upset.
mhm. I guess it's I guess I want to hear more about how you feel like that situation should have been handled.
Well, first of all, you see that both people are trying to reach for connection, but they are using ineffective strategies. Stephanie White, who is the coach, she doesn't see that Caitlin Clark is basically feels unprotected. She feels alone,
Mhm,
right? In that situation. That's why she's engaging the audience to be supportive, to somehow help her to share her frustration. And both of them are not really sharing correctly their emotions that's happening. And Stephanie White, she's look at what she's doing. She is not looking at Caitlin Clark when she says you need to leave the game. She's not explaining. So both situations are becoming more and more distressful in their relationship. So they're both missing each other. It's like you see this response from children, right? Where they get all kind of overwhelmed, and they become more aggressive, and they're basically saying, I need your attention. I need your attention. Where are you? Where are you?
yeah.
I can see you responding to me. You engaging with me. So what I'm going to do, I'm in panic. I'm going to do anything to get your attention. Right. So that's what I mean. Kaden Clark has done it with her father, with her dad, the same thing. And she doesn't feel probably valued enough by her coach, and that's why she's engaging in all of that activity and behavior to just get their attention.
So this is interesting. I think this is kind of a very maybe controversial topic is the right way to put it, because in sports or in any sort of athletic competition, you're getting a lot of that aggressive coaching. You know,
Yes. Yes.
that's what I see, or even like in dance teams, and there's a lot of there's media about it, and there's a lot of shows like Dance Moms, for example, where they are aggressive and they need the rough, violent, or aggressive coaching. Or and so what's your take on that? Because I do think that people think that's necessary, the talking, like, don't be such a baby, what I mean?
Demeaning comments, right? Constantly
Yeah, using
uh,
demeaning comments
yeah,
and
demeaning, putting down, putting
putting
the kind of
people
like
down.
shaming, right?
Yeah,
Shaming and criticizing, or being aggressive, intimidating, to just push people over the edge,
yeah.
push them to high performance. And really, research shows that it works maybe short term, but the long term effect, it's very damaging for people. Most people sometimes shut down, they start to maybe cut themselves, or they start to do different things that creates a lot of distress for people around them. So I feel like that particular, and in fact, Mario Michelangelo, who have done a lot of research on attachment in military, specifically in military, talked about the fact that when leaders do create an emotionally safe environment for their soldiers respond to the stress of going to war and being out there and putting themselves out there and supporting each other is significantly higher than soldiers when they go in fear. in the performance, I feel the same way. In order for people to perform, they do need teamwork. They do. They
Mm-hmm.
need each other on the team. And so if the one performer is constantly is feeling alone and isolated and feeling judged or somehow not valued, they will start to either overreact and do things that are not good for the team, or they start to shut down, and maybe they will perform in a short term really excellent, but what are they actually doing? They push themselves so hard that it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a big pressure for them. A lot of times they feel alone.
So, how are they actually able to build, like, if we have a situation in an emergency, where we have to protect ourselves, how are they able to build the ability to stay calm and have clear thinking in a situation where there is a lot of pressure, or there's an emergency, or, how does that EMC process help support team members who do experience a workplace environment or maybe an industry, for example, that is very high pressure, that has a lot of like urgency in the workplace? How do we use that? How does that EMC process is used? Because what you're saying is you can use it in sports, you can use it in, even the military, you can use it in very high stress environments. How is that scientifically speaking? How do we create
Well,
that
one of the
action?
things that we want to do is we want to practice, right? It's like emergency procedures. On an
Mhm.
airplane, before you take off, you always read the emergency procedures because you have to remember things. And it's the same thing with the EMC process. What the reconnection does is help you to recognize when you get triggered. What are your raw spots? What emotions you have? What are your automatic thoughts? What are your protective behaviors? What do you need? So all that consistent structure, which is repeatable over and over again, it actually helps you to slow things down, because the biggest thing in any pressure, aggression, or
Aggressive,
any
yeah.
yeah, aggressive, like, is to slow things down, is to be able to recognize what is happening with me, what's going on with me, how do
Mhm.
I articulate that. I was doing a session this morning with a leader, and he basically said that I feel so alone because my board told me to reach out to the attorney, and the attorney said this is not my problem, so I feel kind of alone. It's not the attorney's problem, it's not the board problem. Well, if I'm going to be stuck in this situation, and if the situation escalates that I will have to go into a lawsuit somehow, I'm going to be in the middle of all this litigation, which I'm not even responsible for. So
Mhm.
what we did is, once we had an opportunity for him to really slow things down, articulate what triggered him specifically, what raw spot hit, what emotions, he started to make sense. It became coherent. His experience became coherent, and this is the biggest problem we see in a stressful situations, when people cannot really express what's happening for them. So
Yeah.
what they do is they start to shut down, or they start to attack, they start to blame, they start to get the audience to respond, because in that moment they can't hear anything else, what the coach is saying or the dad is saying, right? Caitlin Clark cannot hear anything. She's only hearing, I'm alone, and in that moment I'm going to do anything and everything to survive. And her way of surviving is getting some engagement from the audience, that they love her. And that's what
Mhm.
she's seeking. She's seeking
Yeah.
connection. She's seeking approval. She's seeking love from her audience.
Yeah, she wants that validation, I think, that
Yeah.
she's not a bad person, she's not doing anything wrong, and I think a lot of times we seek that validation where when we are feeling blamed and shamed and criticized and judged, we are really wanting to seek that validation to understand our reason and purpose and worthiness of still having a place in this world, or having a place in the workplace, or having that value that we bring to a relationship or a workplace situation.
Exactly. So the first thing is definitely to practice those awareness pieces about the trigger and the raw spots and emotion. The second piece is we have to focus not who is right, who is wrong, but we
Yeah.
have to recognize that these people are in a negative cycle. So
I
the coach and the player are in a negative cycle.
I think also, like, sometimes I don't feel like we emphasize enough validating the person's experience at the moment that it's happening. So I think a lot of times that in a conflict in the workplace, everything just moves so fast, typically in a conflict, and we miss the opportunity to really just validate and create that space needed. So whether we agree, like even if the coach didn't agree with what she was doing or how she was responding, it's like, had she just been validated in that moment that it was difficult for her, that she wasn't getting the right foul called on the opponent that was causing the foul, it's like that would have made such a big difference for her.
Yeah,
It's like, and I
exactly.
think in so many different conflicts, we search so quickly for the solution, right? But it's like, let's focus on just validating the experience that the person is having at the moment that it's happening, so that that moment becomes so it's like you just are decreasing the intensity in that moment.
Absolutely. You
And
just explained co-regulation.
yeah, well, because
Basically.
I think a lot of people don't do that, and that is where, especially in like a sports game where it's very intense, it's very high energy, you're competing, you're out there, there's a lot of pressure. So how are we able to co-regulate in a very, very high pressure experience or situation? And we find that even maybe we don't experience that at work all the time, I do feel like there's a lot of pressure that comes in a silent way, right? There's like very high silent pressure that occurs at work that can create this kind of same sense of panic and not feeling worthy and not feeling valued in the workplace and not feeling important enough to be heard and seen and validated in that experience. So
Yeah, absolutely. And the coach plays such a big role. Like, the parent, like a boss, they all play such a big, big role. Just even the fact that the facial expression, right? Like Caitlin Clark looks at the facial expression of Stephanie White, and boom, she's already calling the audience to get her to cheer for her because she sees the disapproval on Stephanie White's face. And that is
yeah,
so, we are so in tuned to these type of messages that the other person sends to us that we're not
yeah.
even aware how that becomes such powerful message to the other person. And the message could be wrong,
Mhm.
right? Maybe the message
Right.
is confusion, like the maybe the facial expression shows confusion, but the other person, because of their insecurity in the relationship, already reads it. Oh my gosh, my coach, my boss, they're disappointed in me. Oh my gosh, again, I've done something wrong.
Definitely, definitely. And I do think that's what I think we need to distinguish between using the EMC process and not having access to the EMC process. So when you are in tune with what's going on in the relationship and what is going on an emotional level, you can understand the distress in the person and their behavior before the situation escalates. So it's like a lot of times managers or coworkers in a team are just reacting to the behavior that's occurring that could be disruptive, or it could kind of throw people off balance, or they could be off balance as well, as opposed to responding to the disconnection that's occurring, to their fear, to their shame, to their sadness, those primary emotions that we really need to be understanding in the situation. And so it's like it's either you're responding, or you're reacting. to what's happening. And I do feel like the EMC process does that so clearly and effortlessly, is like teaching you the step-by-step process and the step-by-step way, the path to being able to respond in a way to create safety in that piece, internally and externally in the relationship, as opposed to react and to create chaos.
Exactly. The negative cycle is co-created by all participants. So when we recognize that we all play a part on creating the either negative cycle or positive cycle, we all play a part on creating the emotional safety in the team relationship. It creates a much more collaborative approach, that we are not really fighting each other. We are fighting the cycle that's between us and creating negative interactions that we're having.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we need to contact Stephanie White, let her know that we're available for a session that she probably needs. Well, probably like an intensive, session that she needs with Caitlin.
They definitely need our help for sure.
Yes.
Because you can just see the explosions are getting more and more escalated and more intense.
Yeah. And what's unfortunate with that too is like, we know the path and the tools to get them connected so they have a thriving experience and relationship on the court and off the court. And what ends up happening is the direction that they are going could end either of their careers. And that's what's really sad, right? Like, it's like the end result is that, Caitlin's either going to get kicked off the team or Stephanie is going to get fired or whatever is going to happen. Either of them are going to suffer at the end, or both, or one or the other will suffer without the ways of working through these kinds of conflicts, as opposed to using such a simple process as the EMC process that really lays it out for you step by step and understanding how to resolve and reconnect, and then getting them back to having this thriving relationship that then could change the WNBA, history.
100%. Yes.
So
that's
Stephanie White or Caitlin Clark, if you're watching, if you're listening, if you see any of our content, we're here to support you. If any of you listening or watching know how to get in touch with the WNBA or the owners of whatever organization that leads us to the right people to help support them, then we're very happy and excited to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they will definitely feel a lot more relieved and connected afterwards. Definitely.
Yes,
and that is going to make a big difference in their own professional and personal lives, because they're suffering. They're both suffering.
Definitely. And we see this through and through with every workplace relationship inside the office and outside the office. And we see it in politics, and we see it in sports, and we see it in the workplace every single day. There is not a day that goes by that we don't recognize that you could be very well listening to this and experiencing difficulties in your workplace right now. But that's what we're here for. We're here to help support you and your journey and to get you unstuck from your stuck place. My name is Polina, and I am co-hosting this amazing podcast with Dr. Lola Gershfeld. Anything else you want to say before we close today's podcast?
Well, this was so fun. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. And you guys are so important to us. We want to, experience this and be on this journey together with you.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can go to emcleaders.com for more information on our training, to get all the materials you need to create a thriving workplace environment. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.